Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Vice President of the Development for Research Energy Exploration Company, Ohio Oil and Gas Association Board of Trustees member, and serving as our moderator for this afternoon's business session, James Haas.
Good afternoon. This afternoon, we're going to focus on positive. Matt Hammond and Mr. DeWine, making improvements in Ohio and the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. A little housekeeping. After this 3:15, there's going to be 2 breakout sessions, so we'll address that later. If there's any safety concerns, exit the back doors and go out to the right, and please turn off your cell phones. When I was appointed on the Board of Trustees for the Ohio Oil and Gas Association, I didn't realize the impact and the importance of all the fights and the arrows that, as I recall them, that come towards our industry. The panel that we're about to hear are the people that are out there on the forefront for our group and for our needs, taking care of us. And the Ohio Oil and Gas Association is very supportive of these 4, and we need to be supportive as well. So the 4 people on the panel this afternoon are Jimmy Stewart, the president of the Ohio Gas Association; Jackie Stewart, the state director of the Energy in Depth Ohio; Rebecca Heimlich, the Central Region campaign manager for the American Petroleum Institute; and Mike Chazzi, the director of public relations for the OOGA. Welcome them on stage and give them a nice round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My friends and colleagues and I just want to have a kind of casual conversation about what we're seeing out in the communities around Eastern Ohio and around Central Ohio, particularly as it concerns the activists. And so I want to kind of kick it off to Rebecca. It's hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. So I'd be curious is your input on, over the last year or so, what kind of trends, messages, activities have we all seen from the activists? So give us a quick recap of the last year or so.
Well, I would say over the last year or so, we have seen the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund out of Pennsylvania continue to be active in Ohio. In Ohio, they're called the Ohio Community Rights Network. And to go into the history of them, we would need to go back to 2013, so I won't do that unless you ask me to. So we have also seen groups that are posing as landowner groups that are really anti-groups. We are seeing a lot of activism around pipelines. A lot of that has been legal activism or ballot issues more than we've seen types of rallies or protests. Those are some of the things that we're seeing. Happy to elaborate.
No, I think that's perfect. And the one thing I want to, Jackie, if I can go to you on this one. So taking those objectives from the activists, and there's a very clear difference between environmentalism and activism. As we always said, no is not an energy policy. What are we seeing this year thus far as some of their attempts, either locally across the state, maybe even in the Wayne? What are their messages and objectives this year so far?
Well, as Rebecca alluded to, probably the newest trend that we're seeing, and for those of you who follow Energy in Depth on the blog, you've probably noticed that we've been writing about this recently because it is pretty new, and that is the fake landowner groups that are emerging. So I think, honestly, I think what's happened is, if you go back to the Wayne National Forest, which we've talked about up here for the past couple years, your landowners, your royalty owners literally stood up against fringe environmental activists, and guess what? They won. I don't think that the fringe environmental activists like that very much. So what they're trying to do is hijack that narrative and be very concerned about
Yeah, we have concerns.
We have very
We have
concerned.
concerns.
So they are they are just concerned citizens that about making sure that landowners have their leasehold secured and all these different things. So that's probably the newest trend that we're seeing as far as the messages. Again, it goes back to being really concerned about landowner and royalty owner rights and responsibilities, which is obviously hugely ironic because they don't care about that at all, in my opinion. So I would say that's one of the overarching issues. Another issue that is emerging some is the concern over, obviously keeping it in the ground. It's still very much here in Ohio, nationwide as well, and well, Jimmy can talk about the pipelines, what we've seen there, but we have seen an incredible amount of activism this past year in pipeline space. So maybe Jimmy, you could fill us in a little bit on that.
Yeah, Jimmy, take it from there. I mean, obviously, you are more focused on some of that midstream stuff, perhaps more than we are. So as far as your members, and many of us share them, what are some of the attempts that they're trying to do, either legally, legislatively, protest-wise? What are some of your members saying?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. And if you don't read the Energy in Depth blog, you should. You'll be really up on all the issues. You'll be able to impress your friends with all the knowledge you gain. But no, as far as I think the bulk of my interaction in the last couple of years with a lot of these groups has been with the transmission lines, the FERC hearings, for example, on the Nexus, and to a lesser degree the Rover project. A lot of these groups come out. You can really kind of separate them into two groups. You have your NIMBYs that just not necessarily on an environmental issue, sometimes, but not necessarily environmental, that it concerns that the pipeline is too close to their residents or their business or their land, their community, et cetera. But then you also have the more activist environmental folks that typically come at, bring up, speak at a lot of these FERC hearings, public hearings, and bring up a lot of emotional arguments for their reasons against these projects. And that's, I think that's the bulk of where we see them, but not entirely, because even down in the People's Republic of Athens, near where I live, Ohio University was actually, now, you would think the environmentalists would be excited that they were doing away with a coal-burning heating plant for the university and replacing it with natural gas. Well, they weren't, and so they had a big protest for a day or two on campus, because they were doing a directional bore underneath the Hocking River and to put in this natural gas pipeline. So again, I think that's a lot of the things that we see. A lot of it again is more on the emotional argument that they bring up against our projects.
Well, Jimmy, as you mentioned something a minute ago about Athens, many of you know in Ohio, or maybe you think you know, that we have 88 counties. We really don't. We have 87 in the People's Republic of Athens. Let's just make sure we're all in agreement on that. But Jimmy, you mentioned Athens, and particularly OU. One of the more aggressive groups we've seen comes from your neck of the woods, being from Meigs County, is that sort of direct action. And they do their training in the woods, and they're not about necessarily filing legal briefs or writing letters. They're much more about stringing themselves up on poles and blocking entrances. What have you seen, or what's our history been on some of those activist groups?
Yeah, and of course, a lot of those activists, if you were to go back in the local newspapers 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago, and you would see it would be a different industry, most likely, but it's the same people to a large degree, doing the same type of civil disobedience and protests, et cetera. But again, they tend to come at these things from more of an emotional argument. I remember at one of the FERC hearings I attended, they actually brought the Girl Scout troop in their uniforms and saying, how are we going to be able to toast marshmallows on our campground when this natural gas pipeline is underneath and it's going to kill all of us? And so, again, emotional type arguments that they bring up. And some of you know, I brought this up multiple times, that sometimes you have to respond to an emotional argument, not with engineering facts and figures, which we're really good at doing, but it doesn't win over a lot of the audience that's out there listening. And so sometimes you have to respond back with an emotional argument. For example, we might talk about how many millions of dollars the local school district is going to benefit from this pipeline project. Maybe you can turn that around a little bit more emotional. Say, why are you against our kids? Why are you against our teachers, our school district? This is going to benefit us. Another tactic I would use was saying that you owe an apology to our building trades, our skilled trade operating engineers and plumbers and pipe fitters, to suggest that they're too incompetent and our professionally licensed engineers are too incompetent or too corrupt to build and operate a natural gas pipeline. I think you owe them an apology. So again, that's the sort of thing they bring up. But I would point out that these folks, back to your question with the folks in Athens and other parts of the state, I always remember this quote from a year or so ago. One of the leading activists said, they want us to go away. And he points out in the same quote, they want us to go away. The abolitionist movement did not go away. The women's suffrage movement did not go away. The civil rights movement did not go away. We will not go away. That puts you into their mindset better than anything else I could probably tell you. They truly believe
Spot on, Jimmy.
what they're doing.
Spot on. And Jackie, let me go to you for just a second. Many of the folks that Jimmy was just alluding to, the group, and it's a small group, but they're loud, from Athens, OU, have made their way into Monroe County and trying to make a lot of noise on the Wayne National Forest. If we've talked today in the Environment Committee and other places, a lot of folks are interested in the leasing underneath the Wayne in and around those parcels. And there are certainly some folks that are trying to stop that. I know you spent a lot of time in Monroe County. What have you seen? What are you hearing from the folks over in Monroe County?
Nobody's from Monroe County. That's the truth. They'd like you to think that they are, but they're not. And we see that not just in Monroe County, but all over the state. What is continuously happening is you will get folks from, and in fact, we covered this in the blog a lot last year. Increasingly, the fringe environmental activists are becoming fewer and fewer in Ohio, and we're very proud of that, because that means that more and more folks are actually becoming educated on this industry and how we are. And by the way, how many people in the room knows two things? There are more laborers, union laborers, working in Ohio than any other state in the country. Show of hands. That's a fact. Do you know why that is? It's because of you. It's because of this industry that's true. That's amazing. Another question real quick. How many people know that Ohio is leading the country in carbon emission reductions? Couple, not that many hands up. That is something, if you guys don't walk away with any talking points from this panel, those two are huge, because we need to be talking about that. Guess why that is? It's because of natural gas-fired power plants and the use of natural gas increasing here in Ohio. It's incredible. So as more and more people learn the facts about oil and natural gas development and shale development and the natural gas life cycle, the more that they're on board. And in Monroe County, they really know that, which is why you have bipartisan support across the board. You have landowners coming out and saying, we want to see leasing with the subsurface minerals of the Wayne National Forest, and we are willing to fight for them, and they have. What they are also willing to fight against is people coming into their community that aren't from there. Not only not from Monroe County, they're not even from Ohio. I mean, Earthworks literally flew using fossil fuels, a campaign organizer, not kidding, into southeastern Ohio to try to drum up people. Guess how many people they talked to? Like 20? So the truth is, we are winning, I think, but it's really, really important that when there are activists that come into these communities that aren't from Ohio, or not even just from Ohio, but from the local community that's actually, benefiting from the oil and natural gas industry, we need to communicate those people that are not from those local communities. And I fully expect that when the forest plan review starts this coming month or next month, that we're going to see a lot of folks in southeastern Ohio pushing back.
You betcha, absolutely. Rebecca, let me turn to you for just a moment. You know, you follow some of this local control stuff among all of us, but we certainly look to you. She's the recovering attorney of all of us, so we have to go to her on some of the legal things. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about cell deaths and others issue on the statewide effort. Would you bring everybody up to speed on what we're hearing, maybe a little bit about the timeline, the process?
So I mentioned the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund a few minutes ago, and they are active not only in Ohio, but several states across the country. And so I've dealt with them in Connecticut, in Colorado, in Illinois. Ohio, though, we see them more than we see in other places. And my personal opinion on why that is because it's so easy in Ohio to get on local ballots. We've seen that here, whereas we've really not seen that in other states. So what we've seen since about 2013, they have tried in several places to get what they call their Community Bill of Rights on the ballot. They've collected enough signatures on 26 different occasions in local jurisdictions since 2013 to get them on the ballot. Virtually all of those have been defeated or kept off the ballot. And one city, Youngstown, Ohio, you guys may have heard of this, they have come back. They are back now for the 8th time. It has failed at the ballot 6 times. The voters have said no. And they continue to abuse the process, cost the city, Jackie EID did a study on this, probably over $100,000 now in just administering the election. It was kept off the ballot last year because of some changes in the laws that I'll explain. But they're back for the 8th time this year. So this group, the head of their group is Thomas Lindsay, and if you hear him speak, he will tell you his ultimate goal is to scrap the U.S. Constitution, start over, give rights to ecosystems, get rid of property rights, get rid of corporate rights. And the way he's going to do this is he's going to pass 10,000 of his ordinances, and he's going to create 10,000 lawsuits. So his goal is to get these local jurisdictions sued, and he's not quiet about that. I mean, he's been quoted in articles about that. So the question is, how do they get these on the ballot? I actually went to hear him speak, and I think Mike's heard him speak too. I don't know if you were there too. And someone raised their hand and said, well, how do you get people to sign the petitions to put these things on their ballot? He said, pick any issue that people are already upset about and tell them that's what it's about. We've used voter rights, retail change, sewage sludge, farming, oil and gas. And if you look around the country, you'll see that what their red herring is something different. In Ohio, it's always been oil and gas, whether it's an injection well, whether it's fracking, whether it's pipelines. We have been the red herring, but every document they read gives rights to ecosystems. If you violate those rights, then you've violated the Community Bill of Rights, which means it impacts literally every industry. The irony is that we're the one industry it probably impacts less because we have preemption. Other industries don't necessarily have that. So what we're seeing is because lots of education, people understand it's very broad. You have labor has been a champion in opposing this. The Ohio Chamber and chambers across the state have been champions, as well as the Farm Bureau, the County Commissioners Association, because they've tried to pass these at the county level. And as I'm sure you know, you can't pass a law in a county unless you're a charter form of government. There are only 2 of those in Ohio, Summit and Cuyahoga. So they're trying to, in one document, institute this craziness as well as change to a charter form of government. So a lot of very broad opposition to these, and these groups have come together over the last several years and thought, this is really abusing the system. This group knows that what they're trying to put on the ballot is illegal. They're trying to get cities sued. This shouldn't be allowed under Ohio law. And if you read the law, there were cases that essentially said, hey, if a city council can't pass this law because it's preempted by state and federal law or because it's outside the authority of the city, then citizens shouldn't be able to put it on the ballot and do the same thing that city council can't. So over a few years, in conjunction with all these different groups, there have been lawsuits, there have been amicus briefs filed by, I know our organization, yours, Jimmy, yours, local groups, and a couple years ago, we had essentially a gift out of Hamilton County. There was a marijuana case, and they tried to create a new
it was a citizens group that put this on the ballot. They tried to create a new cause of action. Board of Elections said, city has no authority to do that. We're going to keep it off the ballot. Went all the way to the Ohio Supreme Court. The Ohio Supreme Court agreed. If it's outside the authority of the city to do, then it should not go on the ballot. The state legislature relied on that, and in House Bill 463, a couple years ago, they passed a law that essentially says boards of elections are required to see if there's anything in an initiative petition that is outside the authority of the city or county, and if it is, it shouldn't go on the ballot. So, yay, we thought we had a giant win. Yeah. So last year, there were 3 counties where they collected enough signatures to go on the ballot. On the county ones, they've always gotten to change the county charter wrong, so they've gotten knocked off the ballot for that reason. And one of them is actually still going through the court system, Athens, and just had a hearing about a week ago, so we're still watching that one. There were 2 city ones. In Youngstown, the Board of Elections last year relied on House Bill 463 and the case Sensible Norwood, kept it off the ballot. Supreme Court upheld them. Yay. The people of Youngstown were very happy that they didn't have to do this again last year. Then it goes to Bowling Green in Wood County. The Board of Elections voted to put it on the ballot. Protest was filed. Supreme Court upheld their decision to put it on the ballot. So you have 2 conflicting decisions. Essentially what's happening is 3 of the justices believe that these things should be kept off the ballot. 3 of the justices believe that House Bill 463 is unconstitutional, and 1 justice voted, well, I would say this the right way in Youngstown and the wrong way in Bowling Green. It didn't give a reason why he did it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year. One of the justices that believes that House Bill 463 is unconstitutional is Justice O'Neill, who, as you guys know, is not on the court anymore because he's running for governor, so that is hopeful. The first time we will likely see this tested is this year in Youngstown. The Board of Elections is voting on Tuesday on whether or not the Community Bill of Rights will go on the ballot this year, and I'm sure whichever way that vote goes, one of the sides will file a protest and it'll go to the Supreme Court again. So it's been not only really, there have been 2 different ways that these have been attacked. Local organizations have come together to oppose these because they understand what it means for their community. The Youngstown Chamber will tell you they have companies that decided not to move into the city or decided not to expand because of the threat of the Community Bill of Rights. I mean, why would you move into a city if the first thing you do when you break ground is you get sued by someone because you impacted an ecosystem? So I will say, as the oil and gas industry, we always stay very much in the background. We are happy to be a resource on these, and we certainly follow them and file amicus briefs, but what we've found in watching how these are handled sometimes in other places is if the oil and gas industry is out front and it becomes the oil and gas industry versus the environmentalists, then we're probably going to lose. But if you have the mayor and the city council and local labor and local business and local community groups coming out against these, then it's locals versus a Pennsylvania group, and that has been a successful model in defeating them.
Yeah, we saw that, just a couple of years ago in Texas. The industry spent upwards of $800,000 on ads and slick this and slick that and lost. They banned oil and gas in a particular town, a college town, but in Texas. In that same election, in an Ohio college town, industry spent, but working with locals beat the issue.
And those locals only spent $5,000.
$5,000. So there's a way to do this. And I think I saw the Rhonda Rita. Rhonda, did I see you in the room? I thought that was you. Or as we know you, the mother fracker. We love that. Now you've earned that. But it occurs to me as you mentioned Youngstown, and I'm going to go to you on this one, and I think you know where I'm going. And I know you haven't told this story, but it's been on my heart, and I want you to tell this story. You've been yelled at. We've been yelled at. We've been followed home. We've had things thrown at us. We've been threatened.
Rhonda's been punched.
Rhonda has been punched. I forgot about that. Rhonda, I only had a snowball thrown at me. You've been punched. But this story, and it's 100% true because I watched it play out, and it was amazing. This tops them all. Tell us what happened that day. We were in Youngstown at the DNR event. We were outside. What happened?
You would do this, wouldn't you? No, kidding. Well, some of you probably heard the story because I told it for the first time on this stage last year. Mike, jeez. All right, so I went to go see Director Zeringer speak, not very far at all from where I live. And by the way, my home actually is adjacent to Mill Creek Park, where this event was taking place and where the activists were protesting about oil and natural gas development, despite the fact that there actually is producing wells already in the Mill Creek Park. Yeah. But okay, no, forget about that for a second. Anyway, I came out of hearing Director Zaringer, was just there listening like everybody else. And I was very, very pregnant, 9.5 months to be exact. Very pregnant. And one of the Youngstown activists that is really behind the Community Bill of Rights there, she told me that my daughter was going to be born with birth defects because of what I do for this industry. And obviously it was jarring, but I think what was worse was when she walked away, she said to the 15 activists there, that's what she gets. Think about that. That's what she gets for advocating for energy dominance. That's what she gets for wanting to have my kids have a better life and hopefully have a manufacturing job again in Ohio because of shale. So as Jimmy was talking about with the emotional argument, this is the third time I've told this story. I told it to a bunch of senior citizens earlier, but I'll tell you what I told them, and that is this. Just imagine for 1 second if this was your wife, your daughter, your granddaughter, your friend. And when we hear the other side bring up their emotional arguments, I want to tell you, that's how emotional they are with us. And this is what, because they believe so much in their cause that they will go to any level and say whatever they want. And Mike saw me pretty much fall to my knees that day because it was really tough. But the reason that I'm able to tell you that story today is because the fight is real. And there, as you know, there are billions of dollars funding the other side. Some of that, sadly, is taxpayer money, too, by the way. And if you don't believe it, read our blog. We will talk to you all about what's happened with some of these bad science studies that are funded by taxpayers. So, you know, I think that as we move forward, it's going to continue to be even more of an emotional debate, to tell you the truth, because they're not winning in Ohio, folks. People know that, you know, $63 billion at least is real money. And hundreds of thousands of jobs is serious business. And by the way, just curious, what would Ohio's state of the state be had it not been for this industry? Had it not been?
The sermon the other night?
I'm just saying. I mean, well, I'm just curious. As we look back, you know, we have to think about these things, right? And we have to think about our future. And that day, I was thinking about my daughter's future, you know, and by the way, she's very healthy and she's beautiful. And she has absolutely none of these so-called birth defects that they talked about. But so yeah, that's what we're dealing with.
Listen, I know that's a sensitive subject, and I appreciate you sharing that. But you had mentioned something a minute ago about the future, and we've talked a little bit about the past and kind of where we are now. Jimmy, let me go to you. So sort of moving from today forward, you know, what are the four of us, what do everybody in this room, what do we need to do about carrying these messages forward? How do we continue to wage the war, win the battle, hold the line? And you, as a, you know, we've got a recovering attorney, we've got a recovering legislator here. As a former legislator, you know, as you moved around Ohio, and you still do today, you know, how do we continue to carry those messages to win the day?
Thanks, Mike. That's a great question. And as I think you've gathered, if you've been around any of these folks, that they are a small but very vocal minority, and they will never, ever, ever stop with their messages. As I gave you that quote a little bit ago, these folks, for people like the person I mentioned earlier, it's like a religious belief. I mean, he truly believes, it doesn't matter that the science doesn't back it up, but he truly believes that groundwater, or that those aquifers are being poisoned by fracking, even though there's nothing to back it up. He believes it. Sort of like some people believe that there are people from other parts of the universe visiting us right now, and just because we don't have the bodies in the, you know, in the Air Force Base in Dayton, doesn't mean that they aren't there. You know, just we know they're there.
Percentage.
We believe it.
Moonbeam Congressman? What?
We believe it.
Congressman
So you're never going to convert those folks. But remember, the messages, what they're trying to do is sort of expand their group to win over the masses. And so, yes, we have to respond with the facts and the figures, the jobs, the dollars invested, all of that, all the positives. But we also have to remember they're coming at us with emotional arguments. We should also respond with emotional arguments, and there are plenty of emotional arguments on our side of this issue, and so we shouldn't hesitate to do that. And again, they're not going away. You just have to remember we're not going to convert them, but they're trying to win the court of public opinion, if you will. So we also have to continue that fight going forward, but they will never, ever, ever stop.
And I think, and let me go back for just a minute, and you touched on this a second ago, about their local issues that they've tried to get passed and have failed, and then moved to the county, and they failed, and now they're going to the state, or at least they're attempting. Let me go back for just a minute and talk, if you could update everybody on kind of that process and what that timeline looks like and what they're trying to do.
So at the state level, the same group, the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, they're collecting signatures for 2 statewide constitutional amendments. In order to be able to collect signatures, they had to first collect 1,000 signatures for each measure, turn it in, and get some initial approval that they didn't violate the single subject rule and that type of thing. They have gone through that initial hurdle. It took them, though, 2 to 3 years to collect those 1,000 signatures for each ballot issue. We have always seen it as when they lose at the local level, this is what CELDEF does to sort of keep them active and try to keep them motivated. So the question becomes, well, one, what are the measures about? One is it gives citizens in counties and in townships the right of referendum, because right now they don't have that. They just have that in cities. And so what they're trying to get around is they've only been able really to try to do their ordinances at the city level, because they can't create laws at the township and the county level. So that's what they're trying to do. But it's not just aimed at the oil and gas industry. They're also talking about guns, and they're talking about farming, and they're talking about, and so it's something that would impact a lot of different industries. And then the second ballot measure essentially introduced the craziness that I was talking about. We're going to give rights to ecosystems. State preemption no longer applies. Corporations have no rights. That's in the second one. So the question is, what is the timeline and what is the hurdle they're looking at? They have to collect a little over 305,000 signatures, 100,000 signatures by the 4th of July to get it on this November's ballot. That means if you look at what the rate of valid signatures over the last few years for folks who've turned in for constitutional amendments have been, if you look at that, in order to get 305,000 valid signatures, they're going to need to turn in about 100,000 signatures. We have not heard of anyone. We've talked to labor, we've talked to the farming industry, we've talked to the chambers. No one's seen them out collecting signatures. And I will say that, those who work on these type of things, campaigns over the years have told me that in Ohio, there has never been an all-volunteer signature effort to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot that was successful. The closest that we have seen was the Healthcare Freedom Amendment just a few years ago, but they collected with volunteers for a couple years and had to pay someone to get the last about 150,000 signatures. So unless you see folks out, and I don't know if you guys saw them around the state, but back during the Healthcare Freedom Amendment, I saw someone collecting signatures almost every day in Ohio. So unless we start seeing a mass amount of people, or unless they raise a few $1 million and start getting signatures collected, there's just no way they're going to make it. So API, anyway, at this point, when we're looking at all the different threats in Ohio, this is not something we see as a real threat at this point. We're certainly watching. We have consultants who do, ballot issue type work, and they know the companies that collect signatures, that are paid to collect signatures, and none of those have been hired. We're watching to see if they filed a campaign committee to raise money, which they haven't done. So far, it's looking sort of like a nothing effort. But, if they get an infusion of a couple $2 million, it's definitely something we need to watch. And then the other thing is they can continue collecting forever. Unlike Michigan, where you have to collect all your signatures in 180 days, there's no timeline like that in Ohio. So They could collect for the next 3 years and then turn in the signatures, but you got to, those signatures at the beginning when they started collecting, the likelihood that they're going to be valid is not that great. I mentioned Michigan, and I will give an example. I cover Michigan as well, and I think it's the last 3 or 4 years there have been groups collecting for statewide ballot issues, and it's just something that's a constant in Michigan, and they never get enough signatures. So we just may be starting to see that in Ohio now too.
The other thing I think that it's interesting, and I know you picked up on this in Medina the other night, we saw sort of a unique attempt that I don't think we've seen from them before over in the city of Medina. Why don't you tell everybody what we saw in Medina from a week or two ago about some of their fundraising efforts with City Council?
Oh, right, okay. There's so many things, Mike. Jeez. Yeah, so the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, that Rebecca was informing you all about, for those of you who haven't already been following these characters. So they got sanctioned in Pennsylvania with $50,000 for misleading the public. And their new strategy is to go to the taxpayers and ask them for money for their efforts now.
Listen to this. This is A+ for creativity. Listen to this.
Yeah. So they have a front group, which is called the Sustainable Medina County, because that,
Sounds good, right?
why not,
Yeah,
right?
America, yeah.
And they're all of the above, right? Of course they are. So this front group literally went to the county commissioners and asked for $20,000 to monitor the air.
As a charitable donation.
As a charitable donation, even though they're not a 501c3 that's registered with the Attorney General's office or with the IRS, but never mind that fact. So they went to the county commissioners in Medina, asked for $20,000 for a charitable donation that doesn't go to the health department for monitoring the air, or it goes to the pockets of this front group, which, by the way, happens to be a person's mailbox. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. So they didn't get the money at the county level. So they ended up now they're currently in finance committee with the city of Medina, and they're giving them a break. They're not asking for $20,000 this time. They're only asking for $15,000 at the city. So we'll see how that plays out. But it truly just shows, the lengths that these folks are willing to go to. But, be on high alert, because this is taxpayer money. It's one thing to give a contribution because you feel like their cause is worthwhile, but when you're asking for the taxpayers to foot the bill in an open forum, it's really kind of bonkers.
Oh, it really is. Jimmy?
Thanks, Mike. Just to reinforce as Rebecca's model that has worked so well at the local level, not just in Ohio but other places. It tends to work well at the State House too, when upstream, downstream, we get our friends all working together in the same direction, and we do have friends. The Farm Bureau, for example, has participated in some of these things. Local business groups, local labor groups, all getting on the same page. A lot of these folks don't even like each other, and when the average citizen sees that all those folks are on the same stage saying something is bad for Youngstown or something is bad for Bowling Green, well, the average person who doesn't pay that much attention says, you know what, this must really be bad. So I would guess going forward, but whether be it local or statewide, that's probably the model that seems to work the best.
Well, we just have a few minutes left, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank my friends and colleagues for joining me here today. And frankly, I couldn't do what I do without these guys, and it's just been a great partnership. And I think that's the one thing that I want to leave with you today. Folks like Dave Hill have been around, and they know that we all work really well together. But as I look around the room, there's definitely some new faces to maybe this meeting and this association. And one of the things that I want you to leave with today is that what we refer to as the Ohio model, the fact that you've got OOGA, API, EID, and OGA all talking together, working with OOGA, that doesn't happen in a lot of states. We're not stepping on each other. We're not fighting each other. We're not trying to get in each other's way. We're on the phone constantly, sharing information. Here's the rumor. What do you want to do? Let's divide and conquer. Hey, we have 2 things on a Saturday. Who's going? Well, I'll go to the one, you go to the other one. I just want you to let you know that we do that because that's what is efficient, And efficiency leads to effectiveness, particularly on these local control issues. We're very proud of the record that we have in Ohio by defeating these things, either at the ballot box or kicking them off the ballot. And we have had an opportunity to talk with other states about the Ohio model. What do you guys do here that's so different that we don't do in other states? There are certainly some other states in the Appalachian Basin who don't even operate like this. We are constantly talking to them about sharing resources and sharing information and going to things together and supporting each other. You know, I couldn't imagine if you'd been at that Youngstown thing by yourself, or when we were at that Athens thing, if you were there. You know, we've seen some really aggressive things from these folks, mentally, physically, emotionally. And so to not only be there for each other, that we can all, you know, go get a beer afterwards and go, oh, God, those people are nuts. And then we kind of decompress so we don't, you know, kick the cat when we get home. You know, that's, you like that? I just came up with that. You know, that's obviously one reason. But I think the other reason is because when you all have membership and support these organizations, we want to show you value add. And that's how we support things like the policy team. You know, Tom Stewart is well known saying, the war is fought and won in Columbus, but the battles are fought up and down eastern Ohio. And that's really our objective, is to continue to fight those battles and hold that line and show you value add there. And many of us have introduced you to elected officials and folks in the press, and we want to continue to do that. We also want you to know that every day, all day, we are out there, and as Jimmy said, we're telling your story. And as Jackie alluded to, we're talking about those positive things in the industry. And as Rebecca alluded to, we're holding those activists accountable in the press and in public settings. And we've even had to do that. I think my neighbor, Kyle, are you still here? Kyle and I live in the city of Greene, and the Nexus pipeline is going through our city, and it's going through our development. And we have had an interesting 60 days in our neighborhood. We even have a guy who works for Chesapeake and someone who works for Keenan Advantage. So the 4 industry people in our neighborhood of 75 houses have to have these little meetings in our living rooms to try to support each other. It's okay, just keep your head down. They don't know what we do. It's all right. You know, don't tell anybody. Take the sticker off your car. We make sure Kyle parks his car in the garage every day so that nobody knows who he is. But even there, we're trying to be prophets in our own hometowns. And that's hard to do. But we want to carry that mantle every day, and we couldn't do it. I couldn't do it without these guys. And I'm just so appreciative of the fact that they want to work with us and took time out of their busy schedule to be here today. And traveled from Cincinnati and Youngstown and Meigs County to be here, just so that we can tell you that if you see something in the paper, we're on it. If you see a problem with the activists, we're going to fight it. And if you see something that they're out there doing, we're going to hold them accountable, and we're going to push back. We're going to hold the line. And we want to do that because that's what you expect of us, and we're going to deliver that. So that's what I want to leave with you today. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you all for participating and for continuing to support us. And just want to let you know that we're out there, and we're on it. Thank you very much.